This segment of CoastLife is sponsored by the Parker Group.
When it comes to all your real estate questions, you probably have plenty of them. And the big one is usually, what's the market doing, right?
Always.
Good thing we are bringing in the experts. Rachel and Dustin Parker with the Parker Group are joining us once again on the CoastLife couch. Welcome back.
Thanks for having us.
Love having you.
Yes, and we love that you guys answer all of our million questions. And I know what we're kind of talking about today is the real estate market. What's it doing right now? Because has a lot changed? Has nothing changed? Everybody always wants to know.
Yeah, it's been quite a year.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting year, and I think people have been trying to predict the real estate market for probably centuries at this point, and very few often get it right. And I think what's been really interesting over the last couple of months is people were assuming that the Fed would eventually reverse course and start bringing down, in terms of their monetary policy, the rate. And that would, of course, then affect the mortgage rates and bring those down, which would spur activity. But that hasn't happened.
Right.
And in fact, in their most recent meeting, they actually suggested the possibility of an additional rate hike. And so what the market has kind of done around that is for the last 2 months, sales have actually gone down consecutively. Whereas typically in the springtime, we see sales continue to kind of spike, and then we peak sometime around May or June. With new listings and sales. But it doesn't seem to be the case this year. With that said, prices have really remained stable. They do continue to increase slightly. It's just taking a little bit longer to sell houses, and there's just not quite as many sales happening right now.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so if someone is still thinking and they're like, I'm just going to wait for the market to get better, I'm going to wait. You hear that all the time.
Yes.
You can't really predict it. So would you encourage someone to wait, or just like, let's start the process now?
It's so hard to time the market, and like we were saying, all economic indicators at the beginning of the year were, rates are going to come down and maybe into the fives again by almost this time of the year. But I think what we have in our psychology as a culture right now is a little bit of recency bias. We think about the 2008 crash, and everybody kind of feels like that's a normal thing that's going to happen, and it really isn't. Like if you look at modern U.S. history, you'll see that prices of homes have only come down a few times over the course of history. And besides the 2008 crash, even when they do, it's more like they just kind of stay steady, or maybe they dip by 1 or 2% for a short time period. But you have to keep in mind that even if you did time that, the average annual inflation recently in the United States is more like over 4%. So really at the end of the day, the best time to buy a house, like we always said, is when it makes sense for you. And honestly, the sooner you can afford to find the right house for you, start building equity in it, the sooner that you can actually start building an asset that is good for your family, that you're going to maintain equity in, and it will continue to grow over the course of time.
That does make sense. And I think sort of reiterating that, people shouldn't necessarily go based off what the market's doing. It really should be the time for them. And I assume that's probably why we tend to see spikes in the summertime. That's when kids are off from school, so it's easier to make a move because nobody has to take time off or watch anybody or move anybody around. And
we always say, like, our job is not to sell anyone a house. Like, your life will determine when it's time to buy a house. You're going to have a kid or get married or maybe get a divorce, or your kids have grown up and gone to college. You need a smaller house. Your job moves. That's what determines when it's time for you to buy or sell a home. And so don't put off your life. Just kind of gambling that the market's going to do some magical thing and prices are going to drop 25%. You know, it's just not going to happen.
I think fear maybe keeps people away sometimes.
For sure.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, I mean, historically, real estate always goes up. You know, it may go through dips and periods of time, but like at the end of the day, you're always going to have value in your house as long as you're not looking to buy it and sell it like next year. If you want to stay in your home for some time, then it's going to pay off.
That all makes sense.
Good to know.
Well, one more time, when can people kind of get in touch with you? The best way to get in touch with you when it is time to maybe buy or sell a home?
Our website's a great place to start. We actually, as we discussed before, we have a little AI virtual chatbot on there that can kind of get the conversation started. But you can call our office, stop by any of our offices anytime, but we'd love to chat with you in whichever way is most convenient for you.
Fantastic.
Awesome. And we love chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for coming in and telling us what the market is doing at this moment.
A lot.
But we can tell you what CoastLife is doing when we get back.